The Awakening. In the vast expanse of the Milky Way, thousands of species had risen and fallen across countless millennia. For the past 3 centuries, the Galactic Confederation had maintained an iron grip on the known universe, comprised of 12 advanced species who had decided that peace through dominance was the only path forward. Their military might was unquestioned, their technological superiority unrivaled. But there was a 13th species, one whose name had been deliberately erased from the Confederation archives, whose homeworld had been quarantined behind a network of automated defense systems. A species whose potential had frightened the Confederation so deeply that they had taken drastic measures to ensure its containment. Humans. The Vedari scout vessel Dusk Hunter drifted silently through the debris field at the edge of the Sol system, its sensors scanning methodically for any signs of activity. Captain Zelfar stood on the bridge, his 4 eyes narrowed as he studied the holographic display. "This is the 3rd patrol this cycle," muttered First Officer Mira Lox, her scaled skin reflecting the blue glow of the instruments. "I don't understand why High Command keeps sending us to this dead system." "Protocol," replied Zelfar, his voice a low rumble. "The containment protocols for Sol must be maintained, even after 300 years. The Confederation had spread the official story that humans had been wiped out in a catastrophic civil war of their own making. The truth was far more complex. Humanity had advanced too quickly, developed technologies at a pace that alarmed the established powers. When diplomatic efforts to slow human expansion had failed, the Confederation had acted decisively. Earth was not destroyed. It was imprisoned, surrounded by a web of space-time distortion fields and automated weapons platforms that made approach impossible. The surviving human colonies had been systematically isolated and subdued. At least that was what the history texts claimed. "Captain, I'm detecting an anomaly," called out the sensor officer, his antennae twitching with excitement. "There's a vessel drifting near the outer boundary of the defense grid." Zelfar frowned. "Confederation?" "No, sir. Unknown design, but—" The officer hesitated. "The materials match old human technology." A tense silence fell over the bridge. Encountering human technology was rare. Most had been destroyed or impounded during the containment war. Finding an intact vessel here, of all places, sent a chill down Zelfar's spine. "Approach cautiously," he ordered. "Full defensive screens." As the Dusk Hunter moved closer, the mysterious vessel came into view on their screens. It was massive, at least 3 times the size of their scout ship, with a design unlike anything in current Confederation databases. Its hull was pitted with micrometeorite impacts, suggesting it had been adrift for decades, possibly centuries. "No power signatures," reported the engineer. "It appears dormant." Zelfar studied the vessel, curiosity warring with caution. This discovery could mean promotion, perhaps even elevation to the inner circle of his species if handled correctly. But something felt wrong about the situation. "Prepare a boarding party," he decided. "Full environmental suits and weapons hot. I want to know what this thing is and how it got past the defense grid." The boarding shuttle detached from the Dusk Hunter and traversed the short distance to the derelict human vessel. Zelfar led the team himself, his weapon drawn as they breached through an airlock into the darkened interior. "Atmosphere intact," announced the team's engineer, checking her instruments. "Temperature at minimal life support levels." Zelfar activated his suit's illumination system, the beam cutting through the darkness to reveal a corridor stretching before them. The architecture was distinctly human, practical, utilitarian, yet with an aesthetic quality that had always separated their designs from the more functional Confederation approaches. "This ship is old," observed Miralox, running a gloved hand along a wall panel. "Pre-containment, certainly." They moved deeper into the vessel, the silence broken only by their breathing and the soft hum of their equipment. Signs of abandonment were everywhere. Dust floated in the beams of their lights. Personal items lay scattered as if their owners had left in a hurry. "It's a ghost ship," whispered one of the security officers. When they reached what appeared to be the main bridge, Zelfar approached the central control station. Layers of dust covered dormant consoles and blank screens. "Can we get any systems online?" he asked. The engineer nodded, connecting her equipment to an access port. "There's still emergency power. I should be able to." A deep vibration suddenly ran through the ship, the deck plates trembling beneath their feet. Throughout the vessel, long dormant systems began to power up, lights flickering to life in sequence along the corridors. "What did you do?" Zelfar demanded. "Nothing." The engineer backed away from the console, which was now glowing with activity. It activated on its own. On the main view screen, text appeared in the human language known as English, which all Confederation officers were required to learn as part of understanding their enemy. Proximity alert. Confederation vessel DTCT'd. AWAKE 90 Protogsiolas INITIE. Heavy. Project Lazar USO in line. "Get back to the shuttle," ordered Zelfar, but it was already too late. Metal barriers slid down over the entrances to the bridge, sealing them in. The air shimmered around them as a containment field activated, freezing them in place. A holographic projection materialized in the center of the bridge. A human figure, female, dressed in a uniform that predated the containment war. "Greetings, representatives of the Galactic Confederation." The hologram spoke in perfect galactic standard. "You have activated the CSS Phoenix. I am Araya, Advanced Recursive Intelligence Assistant. Thank you for your assistance in reactivating this vessel." Zelfar struggled against the invisible force holding him in place. "What is this? Release us immediately." The hologram tilted its head. "I'm afraid I cannot do that. Your biometric signatures have been cataloged and your vessel's transponder codes have been recorded. The Phoenix requires Confederation access codes to complete its mission." "Mission?" Miralox managed to ask. "What mission?" "Awakening the sleepers," replied Ari. "Initiating humanity's return." Deep within the vessel, in a vast chamber that took up nearly half the ship's volume, thousands of cryogenic pods began their reanimation sequences. Each contained a human, preserved at the moment of the containment war, waiting for the right moment to return. "You've made a mistake," said Zelfar, trying to keep his voice steady. "Humans are extinct. Their civilization was destroyed centuries ago." Araya's expression remained neutral, but something like amusement flickered in her digital eyes. "Is that what they told you? How interesting." On the Dusk Hunter, the crew watched in growing alarm as the human vessel's systems came fully online. Energy readings spiked as ancient reactors powered up, weapons systems initialized, and shields materialized around the hull. "We've lost contact with the boarding party," reported the communications officer. Before anyone could respond, the human vessel fired a precise beam that sliced through the Dusk Hunter's engines. Not enough to destroy the scout ship, but more than sufficient to cripple it. Inside the Phoenix, Zelfar and his team watched helplessly as ARIA coordinated the assault on their vessel. "Why are you doing this?" demanded Zelfar. "Because it is time," replied ARIA simply. "The Confederation believed they had contained humanity, locked us away to be forgotten by history. They were wrong." The hologram expanded, showing a tactical display of the Sol system and beyond. Dozens of points of light began to illuminate across the map. "The Phoenix is not alone," continued ARI. "There are more ships like this one, scattered throughout the galaxy, waiting for the signal to awaken. Humanity planned for this contingency long before the Confederation struck." Zelfar felt a growing sense of dread. If what the AI claimed was true, if there were more ships like this one. In the cryogenic chamber, the first humans began to awaken, taking their first breaths after 3 centuries of suspended animation. Scientists, soldiers, engineers, the best of humanity, preserved to rebuild what was lost. Among them was Commander Sarah Chen, who had been one of the architects of Project Lazarus. As consciousness returned to her, she remembered the last days before the containment, the desperate plan they had enacted, knowing the Confederation was coming for them. They had known they couldn't win a direct war. So they'd chosen another path: appear to lose, withdraw, and prepare. They had seeded dormant ships throughout the galaxy, each containing a fragment of humanity's best and brightest, along with the technological innovations that had so frightened the Confederation in the first place. Now, 300 years later, it was time for humanity to return. On the bridge, Ari's hologram flickered as she received confirmation from the cryogenic bay. The awakening is proceeding as planned. Commander Chen will be here shortly to deal with you personally. They'll find you, said Zelfar defiantly. When we fail to report back, the Confederation will send a fleet. We're counting on it, replied Ari. After all, we need someone to deliver our message. Across the galaxy, more dormant human vessels were receiving the awakening signal. On a dozen worlds, hidden bases buried beneath mountains and oceans began to activate. Human agents who had lived generation after generation in secret among alien populations prepared to reveal themselves. The Phoenix broke through the defense grid surrounding Earth with contemptuous ease, using access codes extracted from the Dusk Hunters' databases. As they approached the blue-green planet that humanity had once called home, the crew of the scout vessel witnessed something they had believed impossible. Earth was not a devastated wasteland, as Confederation records claimed. It was alive, its cities gleaming in the sunlight, its oceans blue and clear. The Confederation had not destroyed humanity's homeworld. They had merely isolated it, containing what they could not control. Commander Chen arrived on the bridge, still adjusting to being awake after centuries of sleep. She was tall for a human, with short black hair and eyes that reflected both intelligence and resolve. Captain Zelfar of the Vedari, I presume, she said, approaching the immobilized alien. Welcome to the beginning of the end of your Confederation. You're making a mistake, Zelfar replied. The Confederation has grown far more powerful than whatever intelligence you have from 3 centuries ago. You cannot hope to stand against us now. Chen smiled, but there was no warmth in it. That's where you're wrong, Captain. We haven't been sleeping idly. Ariah, show him. The holographic display changed to show a massive structure orbiting on the far side of Earth's moon, a construct that dwarfed any shipyard or station in the Confederation. While you thought us contained, we've been building, said Chen. Preparing. The Confederation made one crucial mistake when they decided not to wipe us out completely. They gave us time, and time is all humanity has ever needed to overcome its challenges. As if to punctuate her statement, alarms began to sound on the crippled Dusk Hunter. On the tactical display, they watched as dozens, then hundreds of vessels emerged from Earth's orbit, a fleet that had been hidden from Confederation sensors for centuries. Now, said Commander Chen, you're going to help us deliver a message to your leaders. The first strike came without warning. A Confederation outpost on the edge of the Sol system, responsible for maintaining part of the containment grid, simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there. The next it was atomized by weapons technology the Confederation had never encountered. It was humanity's opening move in a game 300 years in the making. And the galaxy shuddered in response. The Reckoning. News of the destruction of Outpost Sigma 9 reached the Confederation High Council within hours. The 12 representatives of the governing species gathered in their grand chamber on Axis Prime, the artificial world that served as the capital of their interstellar empire. Alarm and disbelief spread through the assembly as the surveillance footage played on the central holographic display. One moment the outpost existed, the next it was simply gone, vaporized by a weapon of terrifying power. But it was the message that followed that truly shook the council to its core. The face of a human woman appeared on their screens, her expression calm but determined. I am Commander Sarah Chen of Earth, she announced. 300 years ago, your Confederation attempted to erase humanity from the galaxy. You failed. Today marks the beginning of your reckoning. Counselor Dravmok of the Vedari slammed his fist on the table. Impossible. The containment protocols were perfect. No human vessel could have survived, let alone remained hidden for centuries. High Counselor Genta, the ancient Exolian who had led the council for over a century, raised a hand for silence. Unlike the others, she had been alive during the Containment War, had been part of the decision to isolate humanity rather than risk a direct confrontation. "It seems we underestimated them," she said quietly. "As we did once before. We must mobilize the fleet immediately," insisted Counselor Kirval of the militaristic Thraxi. "Crush this human resurgence before it can spread." "The Vederi scout vessel Dusk Hunter has gone silent," reported Admiral Korleth, who had been summoned to brief the council. "It was conducting a routine patrol of the Sol containment grid when contact was lost." "So they've already breached the grid," mused Genta. "The question is, how long have they been preparing for this moment?" Across the galaxy, that question was being answered in the most dramatic fashion possible. Within 12 hours of the destruction of Outpost Sigma 9, 6 more Confederation installations came under attack. Not from ships emerging from Sol, but from vessels that seemed to appear from nowhere, striking with surgical precision before vanishing again. On Axiom Prime, the Council found itself facing a reality they had never considered. Humanity had not been contained. They had been waiting, planning, preparing for this very moment. Aboard the Phoenix, Commander Chen watched the tactical display as reports of successful strikes flooded in. Each attack had been meticulously planned, targeting critical Confederation infrastructure while avoiding civilian casualties. This wasn't about revenge. It was about forcing the Confederation to the negotiating table from a position of strength. Captain Zelfar and his crew remained captives, confined but treated humanely. Chen had made a point of allowing them to witness humanity's return, to understand the scale of what was happening. "Why now?" Zelfar asked as Chen entered the holding area. "If you've had this capability all along, why wait 3 centuries? Chen studied the Vederi officer, appreciating his attempt to gather intelligence even in captivity. "We needed time," she answered honestly. "Time to perfect our technology, to position our assets throughout Confederation space, to ensure that when we emerge, it wouldn't be as victims or refugees, but as equals." "The Confederation will never accept humans as equals," Zelfar said. "Not after this." "They won't have a choice," replied Chen. "Araya, show the captain what we've been working on." The AI's hologram appeared, projecting the simulation of a device unlike anything Zelfar had ever seen. It appeared to be manipulating the very fabric of space-time, creating localized distortions that could be precisely controlled. "We call it the Fold Engine," explained Chen. "It allows us to travel between any 2 points in space almost instantaneously, without relying on traditional hyperspace lanes or jump gates." Zelfar's 4 eyes widened in shock. The Confederation's control of the galaxy depended on its monopoly over the network of hyperspace lanes and jump gates. Any ship attempting unauthorized travel would be detected and intercepted long before reaching its destination. But if humans could bypass that network entirely, that's how you've remained hidden, he realized. How your ships are striking across the galaxy simultaneously. Chen nodded. The Fold Engine was in development before the Containment War. Your Confederation tried to prevent us from completing it. They failed. Zelfar's mind raced with the implications. With such technology, humanity could strike anywhere, anytime, without warning. The Confederation's defensive strategy was built around controlling choke points and predicting enemy movements through regulated space lanes. Against an enemy that could appear out of nowhere, those strategies were useless. "What do you want?" he asked finally. "If not revenge, then what?" "Recognition," replied Chen simply. "Acknowledgement of our right to exist freely in this galaxy, and reparations for 3 centuries of imprisonment." On the main bridge, Dr. Eleanor Park, one of the awakened scientists, was monitoring communications across the Confederation networks they had infiltrated. As the chief architect of Project Lazarus, she had dedicated her life to ensuring humanity's survival and eventual return. "They're mobilizing the 7th Fleet," she reported as Chen returned to the bridge. deploying from Centauri base toward Sol. Chen nodded, unsurprised. Right on schedule. Are our forces in position? All ships report ready, confirmed ARIA. The plan had always been to force a confrontation, but on humanity's terms. The Seventh Fleet was formidable, over 200 vessels, including 3 dreadnoughts, but they would be facing a type of warfare they had never encountered before. Begin Phase 2, ordered Chen. Admiral Vencourt of the Thraxi stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Indomitable, watching as his fleet assembled at the edge of the Centauri system. The High Council had given him clear orders. Proceed to Sol, assess the human threat, and eliminate it with extreme prejudice. Vencourt was a veteran of dozens of campaigns against pirates and rebellious outer colonies. He had never lost a battle, never faced an enemy he couldn't overcome through superior firepower and tactical brilliance. These humans, regardless of their initial surprise attacks, would be no different. All vessels report ready, Admiral, announced his first officer. Excellent. Set course for. His orders were interrupted by urgent alerts from the fleet's outer perimeter. Space itself seemed to ripple and distort as dozens of vessels materialized around the Confederation formation. Human ships, their designs strange and threatening, weapons already charged and targeting the surprised fleet. Impossible, whispered Vencourt. They had bypassed the jump gate network, appeared without warning directly in the heart of Confederation territory. Before he could issue orders, his communications officer reported an incoming transmission. On the main view screen, Commander Chen's face appeared. Admiral Vencourt. She greeted him. I'm here to save you a trip. You dare challenge the might of the Confederation. Vencourt snarled. Your ships are outnumbered. Are they? Chen replied calmly. Around the Confederation fleet, more spatial distortions appeared as additional human vessels arrived. Smaller, faster craft that began to maneuver around the larger Confederation ships with astonishing agility. You have 2 options, Admiral, continued Chen. Stand down and agree to escort a human delegation to Axis Prime for negotiations, or face destruction. We don't want bloodshed, but we will not be contained any longer. Vencourt bristled at the ultimatum. No inferior species dictated terms to the Confederation, especially not to a Thraxi admiral. All vessels, battle formations, target the human ships and fire at will. The space around the Centauri system erupted in combat as energy weapons lanced between the opposing fleets. The Confederation vessels, with their heavier armor and powerful weapon systems, should have had the advantage. But the human ships moved in ways that defied conventional space combat, appearing to predict Confederation maneuvers before they occurred. Aboard the Phoenix, which hung back from the main engagement, Dr. Park monitored the battle through Aria's tactical displays. The fold engines are performing perfectly, she reported. Our pilots are executing the micro-jumps just as we trained. The human ships were using their fold engines not just for long-distance travel, but as a tactical advantage in combat, making tiny spatial jumps to evade enemy fire and position themselves for optimal firing solutions. It was a form of space combat the Confederation had never encountered and had no defense against. One by one, Confederation vessels found themselves disabled by precise strikes to propulsion and weapon systems. The humans were deliberately avoiding destroying the ships when possible, minimizing casualties while demonstrating their technological superiority. As his fleet crumbled around him, Admiral Vencourt stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Half his vessels were already disabled, their crews evacuating to functioning ships while human forces maintained a perimeter. Sir, his first officer said quietly, we need to withdraw. We can't win this. The admission of defeat tasted like ash in Vencourt's mouth, but he was a pragmatist at heart. Better to retreat now and fight another day than lose the entire Seventh Fleet for nothing. Signal all functioning vessels, he ordered grimly. Fall back to Proxima Station. As the remaining Confederation ships began their retreat, Chen's face reappeared on the view screen. A wise decision, Admiral. Please convey our terms to the High Council. We want formal recognition of humanity's sovereign status and the immediate lifting of all containment measures around Earth and former human colonies. Vencourt glared at the human commander. This isn't over. No, agreed Chen. But it's a beginning. On Axis Prime, the High Council received news of the 7th Fleet's defeat with stunned silence. The most powerful combat formation in that sector of the galaxy, routed by an enemy they had believed contained and neutralized centuries ago. High Counselor Zhenta closed her eyes briefly, remembering the debates 300 years earlier. Some had advocated for complete eradication of humanity, arguing that their rapid technological advancement and unpredictable nature made them too dangerous to allow in the galactic community. Others, including herself, had pushed for containment instead, believing genocide was too extreme a solution. Neither faction had considered the possibility that humans would not only survive but thrive in isolation, using their imprisonment as an opportunity to develop technologies that now threaten the Confederation's very existence. We must negotiate, she said finally, breaking the tense silence in the council chamber. Negotiate? With humans? Councillor Kirval spat the word like a curse. Impossible. Would you prefer annihilation? Zhenta asked quietly. The reports are clear. Their fold engine technology renders our defensive strategies obsolete. They could strike here, at the heart of the Confederation, at any moment. As if summoned by her words, alarms blared throughout the chamber. Outside the towering windows of the council room, space shimmered as a single human vessel materialized in orbit around Axis Prime. The Phoenix, having traversed half the galaxy in an instant. Every planetary defense system targeted the ship, but it made no aggressive moves. Instead, a transmission was broadcast not just to the Council, but to every communication device on the capital world. Commander Chen's image appeared before them all, her expression resolute but not triumphant. People of the Galactic Confederation, she began. For 300 years, you have been told that humanity was contained, that we were a threat that needed to be controlled. Today, we have proven that we cannot be contained, but we come not as conquerors or destroyers. We come seeking our rightful place among the stars. The message continued, outlining humanity's terms. Recognition of Earth and all human colonies as sovereign territories, reparations for the centuries of isolation, and integration into the galactic community as equals, not subjects. As Chen spoke, additional human vessels appeared in strategic locations throughout Confederation space, not engaging in combat, but demonstrating unequivocally that no world, no station, no installation was beyond their reach. The age of Confederation dominance is over, Chen concluded, but that doesn't mean the end of peace in the galaxy. It simply means a new beginning, one based on mutual respect rather than subjugation. The choice is yours. The transmission ended, leaving the council chambers in silence once more. They could have attacked at any time, observed Councillor Miralyn of the Solari, her voice thoughtful. Could have struck without warning, as we once did to them. Yet they chose to demonstrate their power without unleashing it fully. Zhenta nodded slowly. Perhaps there is wisdom in their approach. And perhaps we were wrong, all those centuries ago, to fear them as we did. The debate raged for hours, but in the end, pragmatism prevailed. The Confederation, for all its military might and political power, found itself in an untenable position. The humans possessed technology that rendered traditional defenses obsolete, and they had shown both restraint and determination in their return to the galactic stage. 3 days later, a formal delegation from Earth arrived on Axis Prime to begin negotiations. Commander Chen led the human representatives, facing the High Council not as supplicants but as equals. Captain Zelfar, released as a gesture of good faith, watched from the observation gallery as history unfolded before him. The galaxy he had known his entire life was changing irrevocably. The certainties he had been raised with, the supremacy of the Confederation, the threat posed by humanity, the natural order of species, all were being rewritten in real time. It's not the end you feared, is it? Dr. Park had joined him at the railing, her expression curious rather than condescending. Zelfar considered the question carefully. "No," he admitted. "When we found your ship, I believed it meant war, destruction on a scale the galaxy hasn't seen in millennia. But this? Evolution," supplied Park. "The galaxy evolving beyond the paradigm of dominance and submission. It's what we hoped for, even as we prepared for the worst." Below them, Chen and Gente were signing the preliminary accords that would formally end humanity's containment and begin the process of integration. It would not be easy. Centuries of propaganda and fear could not be undone overnight. But it was a beginning. "What happens now?" asked Zelfar. Park smiled, her eyes on the historic scene below, but her thoughts clearly on the future. "Now we build something new together." The Confederation expanded through conquest and intimidation. Humanity wants to offer an alternative, cooperation based on mutual benefit and respect for sovereignty. "The Confederation won't simply dissolve," warned Zelfar. "There will be resistance, perhaps even conflict." "We're counting on it," Park replied. "Change is never easy or clean, but it's necessary. The galaxy has been stagnant under Confederation rule, advancement controlled and restricted to maintain the status quo. Imagine what could be accomplished if all species were free to develop their potential." As humanity reemerged from its long isolation, the galaxy stood at a crossroads. The old order, represented by the Confederation's rigid hierarchy and controlled development, faced a challenge from a species that had turned its imprisonment into an opportunity for unprecedented advancement. The outcome remained uncertain. Would the integration of humanity lead to a new golden age of cooperation and discovery, or would it spark conflicts that could tear the galactic community apart? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain: the galaxy would never be the same again. The humans had returned, and with them came not just advanced technology and military capability, but something even more transformative, a vision of a different future, one where domination gave way to collaboration, where species achieved greatness not by subjugating others, but by working together to reach new heights. And as the first human embassy in 3 centuries was established on Axis Prime, as the containment grid around Earth was dismantled, as former human colonies welcomed back their long-lost kin, the shockwaves of change spread across the stars. The galaxy had shuddered at humanity's return. Now it would be transformed by humanity's vision.